welcome to another episode of Expedition Marriage. I'm Chris with my lovely bride, Jamie, and we are glad that you're joining us. We're excited. I'm excited that you're joining us. I always like to share that because, it is important that you're here. We love that you're here, we can try to help breathe some hope and life into your marriage, into your relationship, and to be able to help give you tools, practical tools that you could put into place.
That's right.
So, look, let's just be honest. Our marriages are not the protected institution they used to be.
No.
Yeah, no.
No.
There's attacks coming from all different angles and directions everywhere you turn, and it's really not a surprise because we do have an enemy who is attacking marriage. It's God's first institution.
That's right.
So why wouldn't he go after that? That's God's building block. That's God's most important.
It's a powerful tool.
Yeah,
God uses.
It's a reflection that he uses, or the example, the earthly example of Christ and his church. So we'd be shocked if he's not going after it, that divide and conquer. So we wanted to talk a little about that attack and how you can take some practical steps to fight against the enemy in your marriage.
Yeah, because like it or not, we need to do that. We need to do that. And I think all too often we forget that the biggest battle going on in all the things going on in the world right now, the biggest battle we have going on is a spiritual one.
Yes.
And sometimes we forget and we begin to see other people. We begin to see agendas. We begin to see our spouse as the enemy.
Right.
And that's not it. Enemy is not flesh and blood.
Exactly.
So our biggest battle is a spiritual one. And so we want to help equip you today with some tools, with some ways that you can fight against the enemy, specifically in your marriage. But before we get into that, I just want to tell you, you should be excited about this episode because we have a lot of free things we want you to have. So, you're going to get some free value. I mean, aside from all the wisdom we're going to be.
Yeah, the pearls of wisdom dropping from our mouths.
That's right. You're going to get some good, fun, free stuff that will help you do just what we're talking about today in your marriage. But we're also going to ask you something in return.
Ooh, something for something?
Something for something.
Okay,
and we're on the honor system here, but we would love for you to leave us a review. That's it. We put, we do put a lot of work and we put our hearts into what we do here on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we truly want to instill hope in you. We want to save marriages. We want to impact your marriage and move you from good to great, from out of the ditch to back on the road again, whatever it is. And so we do put a lot of effort and heart into this. And a simple way you could say, hey, we see you, we appreciate what you're doing, you're helping us, is by leaving a review.
Yeah.
It takes just a minute, and we would really, really be blessed by hearing that affirmation, getting that encouragement. But also, it helps more people see and listen to our podcast.
Right.
So we're going to give you free stuff. But we're also going to ask you for a review, and we're going to remind you at the end. So don't worry, you don't need to write this down. You'll remember. So now,
yeah, you can pause right now and give the review, but we'll remind you at the end. So if you want to listen to it, because we get a lot of emails from people who say we've been listening to this, or we just found you, and we're going back now and binging and all that. I love that. Love hearing that. But you know what? Please share that with other people, and the way you can share it with other people is through the review.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
So, all right, now let's give you what you're here for.
You're right. So let's talk about some tools, some practical things you can put in place to help to fortify your marriage. And the first one is cultivating a strong foundation.
Yeah.
Right. You got to get the first things first. And so if we're not putting into place a foundation, anything else that we're building onto it is just going to start to fall apart. It's going to be rickety.
The first sign of a storm, it's going to topple over.
Yeah. It's like the man who builds his house on the sand, right?
Yeah.
So, look.
Yeah. Jesus said it first.
Yeah, I know.
Jesus said it first.
But, so we got to work on our trust. Our love, our commitment. We've talked about the concept of the covenant when we've talked about the marriages that we've been, or weddings we've been able to be a part of in our own marriage, right? So that it's that jumping in and having that commitment and working on those things. So part of that is open and honest communication, which we'll talk a little bit more about that. Prioritizing quality time. Okay. Now, you can't just jump in and go, okay, we got 5 minutes, quality time, go.
Right. Doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way.
Mm-mm.
You got to make sure there's quantity time so quality time can come out of it. We get good at what we practice. So we got to practice having quality time. So that way these other things can come out of those. The communication can come out of it, which that builds trust, which that reinforces love, right? That helps to solidify communication, that commitment, right? So it all ties in together. And it's, I heard this once about people saying, that well, you're saying that we have to schedule that. That doesn't seem very impromptu. It doesn't seem very spontaneous, and so that's not fun. If we have to schedule these things, and someone had to respond at one time. You schedule your vacations.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, well, you schedule your tea time.
Yeah.
You schedule almost every fun, like if you're going to go, play something, do something, you're reserving a court, you're planning for that. Yes, that's so true.
Oh, this is such a bad day of golf because I had to schedule the tea time.
Nobody's saying that.
So prioritize, get on the calendar dates and playing games and right. So it doesn't always have to be going someplace. You just play games with each other. Have morning coffee if morning thing is your time. If not, have evening coffee or whatever, evening walks.
Yeah, that's for the under 30 crowd.
Yeah, I know. Decaf if you're in your 40s, right. But have walks with each other, and talk to each other when you're walking. It's not just doing the activity. The point of all this is so that you can be connecting through these activities, not just doing them.
Well, I think, last night, and it doesn't always have to be scheduled. You can grab small moments. Last night, it's beautiful here in South Carolina this time of year. And we hopped in the convertible, took a drive, went to chase down the sunset, grabbed a couple of ice cream cones. Drove around town and just talked and listened to music and just drove watching the sunset.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to, they can be really simple. We don't have to overcomplicate this, and we don't have to schedule all the things.
No.
But we should be scheduling some, because what we put on our schedules is what is a priority to us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, there's the tyranny of the urgent. Things will jump in and they'll try to rip our time. We already always have a crisis. There's always something going on. There's always something that needs to get done. So we really have to get, I'm trying to think of the word, but like I don't want to say aggressive is not the word. But, we have to be vigilant as far as grabbing.
Yeah, vigilant is a word.
Yeah, grabbing that and making sure, hey, this matters.
This is sacred time.
Absolutely.
This is our time.
We're going to make sure that we're going to actively invest in this in our relationship. We had an episode about sowing and reaping, and the law of sowing and reaping, guys, is you're sowing something.
Yeah.
Whether you are intentional about it or not, you're sowing something.
You are dropping seeds by how you live.
Yeah, and the reaping is always greater than what's sowed.
Yeah.
So if you're sowing in disconnection, you will reap a lot of more disconnection. So people who are getting into later on, kids getting older, looking at empty nest or in the empty nest going, why are we so disconnected? Well, because you weren't intentional on what you were sowing into that.
Yeah, we will drop that episode in the show notes, because that's a great one to listen to.
Thanks.
But here's another thing that is going to help you fight the enemy. You've got to be growing your spiritual connection.
Yes.
You have to be a couple that prays together. That is, I'm just going to claim it as the number one way to protect your marriage. And there's been studies done on this, and the research is showing that couples who daily pray together have less than a 1% chance of divorce.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's astounding benefits right there, or astounding protection.
Yes.
For your marriage. And not only pray together, but also pray for one another. Lift your husband, your wife before the throne of God. Pray for protection over them as individuals. And here's one of the first free things. If you have not already, we have 2 30-day free programs. One is a praying for your husband, and one is a praying for your spouse.
Yep.
You will get 30 different emails. There's an app. You can go in there. You can communicate with other wives, with other husbands, and lift one another up. But it's free prayers. We give you scripture. I give you a little devotional in some of them, or a resource, completely free, no strings attached. We're going to link that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, because there's some guys who are say, I don't know what to pray for. Or I'm not good at praying and all that. Oh, here we go. here's a prayer for you. Go ahead and read it, and you add to it if you want to. But this is something to help you step into areas you might not be as comfortable about.
Yeah. Yeah. So great free resource. Take advantage of that. And here's another one. You've got to be in the Word.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can get in the Word together, even better. You want your own quiet times, but also do something together. And one of the things we do, and this is not an advertisement at all,
No.
it is, but it's a free one. But we like the She Reads Truth Bible studies. They have sets where you can buy one for the husband and one for the wife.
Yeah, there's He Reads Truth as well.
Yeah, He Reads Truth goes along with it. And it's literally just scripture in a book. And it's got room for notes. It's got room for questions. We go through the same book of the Bible together. It can be topical. They have topical ones. We're doing the life of Jesus right now.
Right.
But we've done Bible studies on a particular book. And what we do is we read them the same time on our own or the same day on our own. And then we discuss them. Whether that's over lunch or before bed or in the morning, whenever we can. But She Reads Truth is a great resource, and it's all scripture, and we will drop that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I've been enjoying that.
Yes, and also, when it comes to like going back to praying for your spouse, one of the things we love to do is a 60-second blessing.
Yeah.
Just a blessing over your spouse. It's taking 60 seconds and just sharing a blessing over your spouse, and whether it's something like the things I fell in love with you for, or, things that I appreciate about you, just 60 seconds. We all have 2 minutes in our day to share and to speak truth and love over one another.
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely have to. Look, you if you have an argument, you'll make 2 minutes.
That's right. That's right. You'll make a whole day out of an argument.
Yeah, sure.
But here's another free thing. We have the steps and a lot of questions that can guide you into having that 60-second blessing in your marriage. And it's a great resource, totally free. We'll drop the link to that in our show notes as well. So I'm telling you, we've got the free stuff for you today. We've got the resources. We're going to equip you because you need the equipping, not because there's anything special or wrong with you, but because you're married.
Yes.
It's because you're married. And these are all resources we use in our own marriage because we have to. We're not immune. We can have all the psychology of marriage and all of that stuff, but if we leave Jesus out of our lives, we're not going to be going anywhere good.
Well, especially if we're going to be standing up for marriage.
Right.
Now we're a target.
Oh, yeah. We are straight up. Y'all should see us when we go to do a retreat. It's bad, man.
It's not pretty. It's not pretty. But you know what? These are great things because I was thinking a lot of times people say, "Oh, we just need to do this more. You need to be better at this, or you need to be more consistent in this." Okay, well, how? What do I do that? And that's why we want to give you these tools, guys, and folks,
They're
kids.
practical.
Right? And this is how you can start to put this stuff into place.
You went to guys, to folks, to kids.
Yeah, I know.
And that was funny.
I'm trying to be inclusive. Okay. All right. So another thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that we're maintaining healthy boundaries. Okay, we have to protect our marriage from outside influences.
Yeah.
There is definitely a force and a pressure, and from inside influences as well. We have an episode about kids and marriage that we should go ahead and probably drop that.
Yes.
Into there as well.
Just read the show notes. Good. Yeah. Print them off, and
there will be links. Just keep hitting other. We've given you a whole weekend worth of stuff to do. Okay, but establish some clear boundaries. Right? So because there's things that could cause harm that we've got to be intentional about keeping out of our marriage.
Right.
And sometimes we're not always aware of them. A lot of these things will slide in. Now, obviously, some of the more obvious things, we've talked about that in other episodes about pornography and infidelity, outside relationships. Those are obvious things. Those don't belong anywhere near.
Yeah, friendships, deep friendships with the opposite sex. And,
yeah, absolutely. For friendships, and now here's ones that may not be as evident or as obvious is friendships with your single or divorced friends, especially the friendships with divorced friends.
They're leading different lives than you,
right? So you're not,
and they don't want to do it alone.
No,
and it's nothing wrong with them. It's nothing negative. It's just the reality. They're leading different lives, and when you're married, you don't need to be tempted to lead a single life.
Yeah, your goals are different. Your goals and your
Mm-hmm.
focuses are different. So, we have to set boundaries with those kind of things. We got to set boundaries with our work.
Yes.
Your marriage is your primary mission field.
Mm-hmm.
And those who are in the ministry, sometimes they'll get caught up in the good of
Mm-hmm.
serving the church and serving the flock and doing all that.
That they're never off.
Yeah, and they don't have a
And they're
time
not
to turn it
serving their
off.
family.
Exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
that's out of balance. You got to have boundaries for that.
Yeah.
You've got to be a husband in that case and a father who is providing for your family in more ways than just a check. Hobbies,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to meddle now because we also have to have boundaries on what kind of media and how much media, including social media, that we're getting. Because that's going to affect our brains. That's going to change our brains. Just even being on that's going to start that dopamine. It's hard to compete. I can't compete with the dopamine that a phone can give.
No, and that's the sad thing. We were just talking about this the other day, just how we're all trained, and I feel really secure saying all. I mean, we're real close to all, trained.
Bring it. If you're the exception, let us know.
Yes, but we used to get, and the design is for us to get dopamine hits from people, from one another. Like, I'm excited to see you, and we're sitting here having a conversation, and that should be flooding our brain with all the good stuff that connection brings.
Right.
But it's flip opposite. It used to be, if I'm talking to you, and we talked about family dinner time growing up for us, it's like having dinner. If the phone rings, no, you're not getting the phone.
No, it's dinner time
because the phone interrupted people. But now it's the opposite. Now it's people are interrupting our phone time. And that is a problem. And we're getting all these dopamine hits from the phone that now our spouse is beginning to interrupt that. And our spouse becomes a negative thing when it's like, I'm trying to watch this, or I'm reading this.
I'm watching these reels here.
Yes. And they're talking to you. Or if your children come up while you're doing something on your phone, like, that is backwards.
Yeah.
And so, yes, and it's so hard to put boundaries on that, but you've got to have phone-free time because we've got to be connecting and communicating with one another. And why that is because guess what the next one is that protects your marriage? It's prioritizing communication.
Yep.
We've got to be a couple that talks regularly. We need to establish, regular check-in questions that we're using. So many couples don't know what to talk about, but there are questions you can have that you can talk about for the rest of your lives.
Oh, yeah.
Because the answers will be different. And we're always checking in with one another with questions like, is there anything concerning you right now? What fears do you have? What's anything you've been worrying about a lot? What's been bothering you?
Yeah, it's that checking in on the internal or the inner life, because we're good at going, hey, you okay? Everything good? All right, then I'll quickly move on by versus going, hey, how are you doing? Okay, how are you really doing?
Right. Yeah, what are you worried about? What's keeping you up at night? What's going on in your life? How is work? How are your relationships at work?
Right.
Any deadlines, anything you're stressed about?
Yeah.
And questions like that, you'll be able to talk about them forever, for almost the entirety of your marriage. And one thing we always practice is a Sunday check-in. Now, you can pick any day for this, but a Sunday seems to work because you're approaching the week. The new week is right around the corner, but you have that check-in. And for us, there's several questions we ask, and there's things we do as far as what's on your schedule this week.
Right.
And just even looking at your schedule for the week allows you to have a little more control. It removes the overwhelm of it, or at least it does for me, but it allows you to develop a game plan. And one of those questions we ask as we go through our schedules, is there anything you need from me this week? Or is there any way, because if we talk and his schedule's crazy, then my question is, how can I help you?
Yeah.
What can I do? Or maybe because you've had this conversation, you can go, wow, you know what? We probably need to get takeout a couple nights this week for our sanity.
Or buy one of those frozen pizzas and get ready to pop that in the oven. Right. And here's one of the things too, because a lot of times, look, both of you might be running ragged and you might not feel like, well, I can't ask that question because I can't necessarily be a support for you this week, because it's always the way when one of you is really caught up and busy, the other one that's when you're really caught up and busy too. It's not usually, back and forth. So that might just be the time of knowing, hey, it's going to be really hard work and stressful for me. So I might not be the nicest person, so
or even just knowing it's like, oh, he's got stress this week. So if he snaps a little bit,
if
or
I'm
if he's
grumpy,
absent a little bit, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's that. It's not you. I'm trying not to let that affect, but just if that does come out, please have grace for me.
Right. And even knowing it's crazy week, so now come Wednesday, I'm going to check in. How are you doing, or how did that stressful meeting go, or whatever it is in your marriage that you can talk about. But here comes the next freebie for you. We have just a simple worksheet, a simple handout. It's simple steps to having a weekly check-in.
Yeah.
And it's our formula. It's what we do. It's the questions we ask one another. And it's what we go through at the end of every week before we launch into the next week. That way it sets us up for success, because blindsides, the enemy loves a good blindside. And so if you're off guard, you're sitting prey, and enemies and predators love easy prey.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't want to have to work for this.
No.
If he checks in with you and he's got to do all this work to get through all these barricades, it's easier for him to just move on to the next one. And so you need to protect it. And so go get that free download. You're going to find that in the show notes too. And lastly, get support.
Yeah.
We all need support. That may be counseling or coaching. It may be sitting down with your pastor, or a good mentor couple, or another friend, a couple of friends who are ahead of you in marriage and can guide you, because maybe they've been through this, done this before. And also, get good friends around you that are like-minded.
Yeah. Other married couples who are trying to do it well.
Yes, and evaluate those friends. Like you had mentioned, our divorced friends, we love them. We can still be friends with them, but they should not be our core support group.
Right.
So we need people we're linking arms with, because now, that's much more protection.
Well, and even small groups. And I was just thinking, we've got some friends that they ended up going to an empty nest small group. And everybody was like 10 to 20 years older than them.
Yeah.
And they walked out there going, we like this. We want to keep coming back.
Yeah, it's like, what'd you think? I kind of liked it. They're
it.
20 years younger, and they loved it.
We can gain from these people. We can, they could feed into our lives and help us navigate some of the places, because they've been through it before. That gives us hope.
That's right. And so we have to have community.
Yes.
We have to rally together as a community.
We are made for community.
Tells us that in Hebrews 10:25. Don't stop meeting together. Why? Because we encourage one another. And when we stop meeting together, we lose that encouragement, and we can fall prey to, we can get downtrodden. We can begin to feel hopeless, and things feel harder when we're out there alone. And even in the rest of that verse, it's like, even more so as the day is approaching. So every day we're closer to the Lord coming back. That means we're closer to this world falling apart and coming to an end. It's going to get uglier. So even more so, we need friends. And if we look at the way social media itself has divided us, and we're all inside, and we're all working from home now, and all of these things, we need to be very intentional to not stop meeting together and to go find our community.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's it for today. Hopefully that is really practical stuff that you can put to practice in your marriage today. Go get all your free handouts. Everything is listed in our show notes. And don't forget, here's your reminder, don't forget to leave us a review, because it really helps. It really helps. It encourages us, and it helps us on our mission to help some marriages for the kingdom. So there's a real battle. There is a real battle for your marriage, and we can't just keep setting ourselves up as easy prey. We have to stand on guard. We have to be vigilant, but we also have to remember that the enemy may be vicious, but he's never going to be victorious.
No.
And we need to walk in that truth. And the reality is, prioritizing our marriage is one of the best ways we can.
Enjoy the journey.